I'm currently in Montreal, and I did cover the Canada Strong and Free Network conference for 3 days, where many speakers took the stage to discuss burning issues in today's society. One of the critical topics under scrutiny is the upcoming censorship laws advocated by the Liberals. Bill C-63, also known as the Online Harms Bill, aims to criminalize hate speech and potentially prosecute individuals for expressing views deemed offensive, past and present, including even in life in jail. It's evident that Justin Trudeau and his fellow MPs are aggressively pushing for measures to suppress dissenting voices, making it increasingly challenging for independent news outlets to thrive.
What does Justin Trudeau mean when he says the word hate speech? He means speech he hates.
In Canada, there are still a few media outlets that exist, like True North. Andrew Lawton, a star journalist and speaker at the Canada Strong and Free Network conference, is among them. Since independent news outlets are being targeted, I wanted to discuss with him about independent journalism through the lens of censorship laws. I were a speaker at that time, you were a speaker this year also. I want to know your point of view. How Canada has changed in 1 year?
I think a lot of the metrics have gotten worse. The inflation has been very difficult for people. Interest rates have become very difficult for people. Division seems to be larger in some ways, and people are having more issues affording their home. Carbon tax has gone up. But where I think things may be better overall is that people seem to be a bit more hopeful now. And that's even something here. I mean, obviously people at the conference don't like Justin Trudeau, and they're very excited about the idea of getting rid of him. And that idea that finally seems possible to people seems to be making it a little bit better. So while I don't want to claim that some of those core problems in Canada have gotten better, I think the attitudes around them have had a bit of improvement.
How do you see the future of journalism when we see that Justin Trudeau wants to now put the law C-63, that censorship of the internet?
Oh, it's dangerous. And listen, I covered this issue back when it was around the first time, going up to 2013, when that section of the Human Rights Act, which C-63 will put back, when that was removed by the Conservatives. And the reason they removed it is because that bill, that law rather, was allowing the censorship of speech. But more than that, it was targeting conservative speech. It was conservative bloggers, authors, writers, people like your boss, Ezra Levant.
And quite frankly, I won't call it a media organization, your group of individuals need to take accountability for some of the polarization that we're seeing in this country. And
that we're being targeted by these human rights regimes. So the Liberals are bringing that back, but they're making it worse because they're adding to it this idea that social media companies need to comply. So it's not just that the government can punish you for what you say. Social media companies must censor you. Now, if you're Facebook or you're Twitter and you decide, okay, I don't want to fight the government on this, I just want to go along with it, what are you going to do? You're going to censor proactively. You're going to just say, all right, this person has misgendered someone on Twitter. We'll just delete it because we don't want the Canadian government to send us to the hate crime gulag or whatever it is. So it's incredibly dangerous, and it's going to result in people just not speaking their minds because they're terrified of what will happen, or social media platforms that don't let people speak their minds in the first place.
There is also the Justin Trudeau license for journalism that we've been refused. What do you make of this? Because freedom of the press make what is a democracy?
Well, it's supposed to be, but the government in Canada right now, as you know, I mean, you had to fight in court for your right to ask Justin Trudeau a question at the Leaders' Debate, as did True North in 2019. The government only wants its own chosen journalists. They want their favorite people. They want their friends there. They don't want ordinary people, and they certainly don't want independent, non-government aligned journalists. I think that the one saving grace of all of this, the one good thing, is that they're not competent people. So it's going to take them a long time to put this licensing left-wing regime in place, if that's what they want, to put this full regulation in place. And I think what's going to end up happening is it's going to make it very easy for, let's say the conservatives in this country, because they're polling very well right now, to say, we don't even need to dismantle anything. We're just not going to finish this. We're going to walk away and we're going to respect press freedom. But they better do that. I mean, and that's the thing, is that I'm principled on this. I would not want a conservative government to treat left-wing journalists the way that the Justin Trudeau government has treated conservative journalists. I think everyone should have a fair shake because press freedom is supposed to be universal.
How do you make that conservative is raising in Canada? But in Quebec, it's still the Bloc Québécois, and conservative is almost the same than liberal.
You know more about Quebec politics than I do. I'm not an expert in them, but one of the things that I do know about Quebec politics is that you can't take the same issues and the same debates that you can have in the rest of Canada and apply them in a Quebec context. Because, Canada doesn't have a national identity political debate. In Quebec, they do. They talk about national identity all the time. Canada does not have a secularism debate. In Quebec, there is that secularism debate. So the issue in Canada nationally is perhaps a bit more left-right. In Quebec, it's not. I mean, CAQ, the CAQ, was told in the media to be a conservative party, but you look at what they've done, a very unconservative party in a lot of ways. The Parti conservateur de Quebec, which is a conservative party, doesn't really have a real footprint right now electorally. So I think that Quebec is a unique case, and it always is going to be in politics. I think what we saw, though, in 2021 with Erin O'Toole is that when you have a national conservative party that tries to give Quebec everything it wants, it doesn't work. So that, I think, is a relevant part there. So I don't want to say Quebec should be left out of the equation. It's a part of this country, but I don't think that pandering to them will work, because it hasn't.
If Pierre Poilievre is elected as the next prime minister, it will face a lot of organisms, union, that are pretty more from the left than from the right. So what would be the challenge that it would need to face?
It's funny you mention that, because I think a lot of the union members that traditionally would vote Liberal or NDP right now might actually vote Conservative. And private sector unions are different, because if you're in a private sector union, you're in the trades, you're in construction, you want houses to be built. You want there to be an economy that's thriving. You want to keep your factory job. So in that sense, private sector unions might actually go Conservative. And we're seeing that in the polls. Public sector unions are a different story. Government workers are not going to go Conservative. And we've seen they're very venomous and vicious towards Conservatives. And in Quebec, you see, that's where you have the largest support for CBC, for Radio-Canada. So all of these people in Quebec are going to be the ones fighting tooth and nail because Pierre Poilievre said he'll defund CBC. So there is going to be some resistance there, but I think it's key. And if Poilievre has learned anything from the last two elections, it's that you have to stick to your principles. Don't let the media and the activists take you off of what you believe and what you're trying to sell to Canadians.
Don't forget to go over rebelfieldreports.com. On this website, you can encourage our independent journalism and make sure we still exist, because we don't take any penny from the liberals. So go over rebelfieldreports.com and donate what you can, and thank you in advance.